You're listening to Generation AI
from Live Person.
Hello, Generation AI listeners. It's your host, Joe Bradley. Before we dive in, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review if you feel we deserve it. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us get our incredible guests in front of even bigger audiences. So please like and subscribe as you see fit. Speaking of incredible guests, I am thrilled to bring Sushma Niwalkar to the podcast today. Welcome, Sushma.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. Sushma is the Senior Director of Customer-Centric AI at Northwestern Mutual, which is one of the largest financial services companies in the United States, for those of you who may not know. She is a B2C and a B2B2C AI strategy leader with over 2 decades of experience in analysis, AI, and automation. Some of the places that she's focused her career on include driving alignment for CX stakeholders, transforming financial planning through AI, and implementing the company's first ever omni-channel experimentation platform and next best action engines. Sushma, many of these are topics that are very near and dear to us at Live Person, and some to me in my career even going back farther than that. So I'm pretty excited to pick your brain today, and pretty excited to welcome you on the show.
Thank you very much, Joe. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, let's just dive right in. But let's dive in by taking a step back first, as counterintuitive as that might seem. You started your career as a business analyst at the Bank of Ireland. How did AI start to affect your journey? Where did it come in for you? And going back a ways, did you think it was going to have a big impact on your career and on the world, or has that kind of come over time? Tell us about your perception of AI as well.
AI actually affected my journey even before Bank of Ireland. It started right in school in an econometrics class where I saw how math and stat plug into actually solving goals. The linearity of it, the impact it could have just fascinated me. At that point, I had no idea it would be such a big deal, Joe. It was something that I loved and I wanted to work in this space. But when I saw my first AI model that I actually developed and it got deployed and the impact it had, I still remember it suppressed the population based on risk score and improved overall loss rates and actually saved dollars or euros, to be precise, in Ireland. So I was hooked then, and I never looked back since. But I had no idea it would balloon into the industry it is today, and feel so privileged to be part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting how far the industry's come. I mean, you've got me thinking back to my good old days too, when we were doing, logistic regression to do lookalike modeling and things like that, right? That was kind of AI back then, but what a change, particularly over the last few years.
Yes, especially in the Gen AI space lately today. Oh my God, it's exploding.
Yeah, and I think you have a really fascinating, industry, and probably in some ways a challenging industry to work on with respect to this technology, or at least one that we want to all proceed kind of carefully. You're one of the leaders here in helping the financial planning industry really incorporate AI and transform a little bit. So what does that look like? What lessons does financial planning have to teach other industries as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'm part of the insurance industry, as you said previously, and in the insurance industry, especially life insurance industry, is the heart and soul of life insurance industry are really advisors. And core to their process
Mm-hmm.
is actually sitting down with clients and building their relationship. And they use planning tools in order to build that relationship. And that process or that experience of planning is extremely important because it really helps deepen our client base and our prospective client base. So this is the process where they sit down with our clients and our prospective clients and they understand their goals and priorities and build out a plan towards their financial security. So here we have both AI solutions and exploring even Gen AI solutions in this space. And for planning in terms of AI solutions, a plan is made up of several components, right? Savings, retirement, asset accumulation, decumulation, death benefits. So many parts to this. So, one part of our AI solutions is a system of models that create personalized or tailored plan for our clients. And last year, we also started exploring Gen AI solutions during the planning process. And first party data, as you
Mm-hmm.
know very well, Joe, is king. With the onset of GDPR
Mm-hmm.
and CCPA and third party cookies, cookies going away, third party data becomes less rare. So first party data is king. And planning process has access to critical first party data, including client goals, their dreams, their fears, their feelings, actually, and capturing it and building solutions that maximize financial outcomes for our clients is our number one priority across both our risk and investment solutions. So of course we want to do it in a very ethical and a responsible manner, since core to our business is the trust of our clients in any financial services industry.
Yeah, I think this. A lot of people are, for I think very good reason, talking about now. Sort of the death of third-party cookies and the rise of first-party data, as you suggest. I think it's one of those things to me that feels like such a positive development in the industry, because it just generally goes to align customers with businesses that take care of their data and make their data maximally useful for that customer, rather than just maximally useful for the business. Do you feel that basic way as well, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think we've seen many inflection points in the industry. First, it was very growth oriented. Then it became very efficiency
Mm.
oriented. Today, it's really experience oriented, and it's about how do you create a personalized experience across all the touch points that a customer has. So, um, you know, so that's why it's very, very important when we're talking about edge cases and capturing the market and capturing our clients, interests. Um, you know that's where data science is taking a new leap, and I really look forward to that.
Yeah, I think that's right too. I mean, I remember, back in the Amazon days, for me, working on product recommendations and, optimizing the search experience. And I think you're right. You go back and it was, you know, the customer experience was part of the point, and an important part of the point, but it wasn't sort of as central as it is today. And it feels like generative AI is a very interesting, or very powerful, I should say, way to put the experience of the customer at the center. You said you had some Gen AI, products on the planning side. You sort of mentioned them a little bit. I wonder if you'd expand on that just a touch and tell us more about how Gen AI is really coming into financial planning and, in the life insurance biz.
Yeah, it's very exploratory at this point, Joe. Couple of things that we're doing. The
Hmm.
one thing that we're doing is, as I mentioned, during the planning itself, how do we capture that conversation and maximize that conversation so that we capture what are the true needs of the customer. That's one part of it. The other part of it is,
Hmm.
knowledge management. I think our advisors, if they have access to a lot of information at their fingertips, it makes them better advisors, especially the newer advisors. So we're building this entire capability where, now search is becoming very old school. It's all about, retrieval and retrieval augmented systems. So we're using Gen AI
Yeah.
capabilities to enhance our ability to get the knowledge for our advisors during the planning process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of work like that with our customers as well for the contact center agents. So that's a, I think that's a very, that's an application of this time for good reason. And then the sort of data capture and understanding of natural language data is another one that's very near and dear to us as well. And I think, probably falls under this header of, data translation layers for these models, which I think not everybody, I certainly didn't see coming, you know as much. It's a little harder to see that coming than maybe just the straight generative use cases, but definitely a very useful kind of workhorse application here as well. uh, you're also looking at, and I think you touched on this a little bit, you're also looking at optimizing, customer journeys, this next best action kind of framework, figuring out what digital touch points like actually move the needle on sales, that sort of thing. Tell us about your work there, and what goes into solving those kinds of problems.
I think the beauty of data science is, it translates business problems into equations, into mathematical equations. And again, it's such an evolution. Like it used to be a very linear space. Now it's an extremely non-linear space, but the impact is the same. And our goals are, how do you
Hmm.
drive and improve customer experience? And, we look across customer journeys to see those that have had the highest emotional impact to experience in terms of various pain points. I think most industries do that. And once we prioritize those pain points, we try to look for ways in which we can reduce cost to serve while maintaining a level of customer experience. So that's one piece of what we're doing. And you mentioned, contact center opportunities, and this is probably what most people do. But what we're also trying to do is looking at all the touch points, trying to understand which touch points lead to the deepest engagement. That's like the next level of what we're trying to do, because not every touch point is as
Hmm.
important as the previous. So, what kind of touch points and what kind of journeys truly show customers' engagement with the business is something that we're trying to trace.
Yeah, this is an area where I think sometimes simpler can be better. I'm curious about your experience and how you guys work as well, as much as you're comfortable sharing here. Of course, I wouldn't want you to give away any secret sauce, but I often find that old school regression techniques are important to develop a bunch of hypotheses and really start to get a picture of what's going on, and then running through and testing that. There's sort of an old school data science process that hasn't lost its luster even in the latest. But I'm curious what you think.
Sometimes I feel old school is king because I think you are connected very well to the objective function in a very tangible and a clear
Mm,
linear way. I think as we go
mm.
further and further into non-linear approaches, yes, you get at the edges, but then I think the impact is something that you have to learn the trade-offs between the actual impact that you're creating versus the complexity of what you're trying to build. At the same time, what we're
Hmm.
learning when it comes to customer journeys is that it's important to know that it's not just one thing or another. It's a combination. It's a web
Hmm.
of things that could have been underway that we're trying to solve for.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a really interesting interplay here with Gen AI as well. I sort of, this is almost in contradiction to the last statement, but I think there's a way in which this technology can help with hypothesis building as well, and can help with understanding complex data. Even things as simple as reading web history and turning that into a narrative about what the user looks like the user is trying to accomplish, or other kind of semi-structured data as well. Um, yeah, do you guys have you thought about that at all? Are you using this technology to help you, think about those touch points, or not so much yet?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a fascinating space. In most organizations are now digital first, and they're data centric organizations. So what that means is that P&Ls are getting
Mm,
tighter and tighter, markets are getting more and more fragmented. So centralized customer centric predictive capabilities across various touch points in a synergized way is extremely important. And so that's why experimentation at scale is very important. Very often you have organizations where experimentation is very siloed, and yes, you learn, but then to have a platform that is creating experiments at scale across touch points is critical, because only then you really understand the overall customer experience. And so that's how you can actually push the boundaries in terms of competitive advantage. And even bringing in third party data, I know it's really tough and it's really much more limited than before, but I think we still have to play in
hmm.
that space.
Yeah, well, tell me more about this. So you've got this sort of so termed, omni-channel experimentation platform. Like explain that more. That sounds like an important way to understand what customers care about and what influences them. Yeah, give us some more detail.
Sure. So what we mean by that is that customers have various touch points by which they interact with us. One, of course, is they come to our website. That's one platform. The other platform is they call our contact center or they call our servicing center. There are many such places, and then our advisors are talking to our customers and they have their own platforms. So there is this variety of B2C as
Mm.
well as B2B2C platforms within one organization, and then you have the wealth platform, you have a risk platform. How do you But the customer remains still central, and it's the same customer, same client. So how do you know what is happening across all these platforms, and how are you learning about the customer in a disciplined fashion, in a step by step fashion, and can act on these opportunities in an always on system? That's what we're trying to always be on top of. Are we there yet completely? No, but I think we're building those linkages.
Do you see this as a kind of experimentation platform in the sense of really uh, running tests in a sort of a control and treatment kind of sense? Do you see this as a data, as understanding the data and trying to do causal inference? Is a little bit of both, something different?
All the above. All the above. It is like, what
Mm,
do you collect, what do you harness, and what do you act upon? You're making those decisions all the time.
yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think those problems that have been important for a long time, of what really makes people take notice, what really makes people change their behavior. These are, I think you put it well before when you talked about the value of putting some of those questions and some of those human insights, into a mathematical form, so we can create some objective understanding about them and not kind of get lost in the storytelling. Okay, let's pull out the crystal ball. What trends in AI or CX excite you the most these days? What do you think is blowing up or about to blow up?
uh, I think efficient and scaled computing trends in that space are both exciting as well as overwhelming.
Well, apparently, like Microsoft can't build, can't put, the right machines enough into the or fast enough into the data centers due to, like base constraints on the infrastructure. But go on.
Insane, insane. Yes. And of course, trends in AI architecture that lead to improved accuracy are also extremely interesting. Right? There's an algorithm, but its application is far more interesting. Ultimately, it's about understanding and applying unstructured data across multimodal signals. But I feel there are some really stalwarts in the industry who really ground you. That like, if you see Jan LeCun's point, about how humans acquire knowledge, and physical sensory perception trumps it all, right? When it comes to AGI, so that's something that keeps you grounded. And even a professor, have you heard of Mike Woolridge, professor at Oxford, who talks about how far we are away from actually humanizing AI, right? That fascinates me. The human face of
Mm,
AI, we have to really keep a watch on that and make sure that it is garnered towards that. But at the end, I'm grounded to I'm grateful to people like Andrew Ng, who help us stay very grounded, because you have to be data centric. And things like the Gartner hype cycle also, we're probably going through the peak
yeah,
for generative AI. There will be a trough of
yeah,
disillusionment coming, and then that plateau is what we're waiting for. We'll see. But there should be a lot coming our way.
yeah. It seems like one that can't help but hit eventually in terms of a range of very valuable applications, but the devil in the details of how long and how big, that's a real devil. And I think I still think no one really knows, but I agree we've gone through a pretty massive hype cycle, and I would characterize it the same. I think we're kind of generally speaking crawling out of the trough of disillusionment and into what the new reality to come as it develops. Great. Well, that was, I think, a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Are you ready to move on to hype it or hate it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. I think I have to go first. So we'll do that. I'm gonna hype something this time. I've been hating on a lot of things. I don't even know if I've hyped anything yet. I think I've only hated. So, John, you wanna tell our listeners what's about to happen?
Yeah, so I'm going to be keeping time during this segment, and I will put 60 seconds on the clock. And then, Joe, you will have an opportunity to either hype or hate on something that currently is top of mind for you. And then I will let you know when you have 30 seconds, and then 10 seconds, and then a buzzer will sound when your time is up. And then Sushma, you will have a chance to weigh in on what Joe has hyped or hated on, and then it will be your turn. So that's the general deal. So I will put 60 seconds on the clock. Do you have any questions, either of you?
Nope.
Sushma?
I'm good.
Good. All right. It's not
All
that
right.
complicated after all, John. I think we can do it.
I think so too. All right, so I will put 60 seconds on the clock, and Joe, your time starts now.
Okay, one of the things that I am generally lucky enough to be able to do as part of my job is to talk to people who are doing new startups and finding ways to create value out of all this new technology and all these new models. And I've had a few conversations in the last couple of weeks with people who are doing model training and alignment at scale, things like that. Really working to make this technology like maximally connected to what we want and need in business. And many of them, in fact, really all of them, are building on top of a wealth of open source capabilities that continue to get better and better in this area. So for me, I want to hype
10 seconds.
open source generative AI. I think it's something that didn't need to happen in this world. It would have been very easy for the world to go away where it was all closed source and all commercialized. But we didn't. And we've got, as a result of that, a fascinating asset, and we'll all learn a lot faster and better because of it.
All right. So, Sushma, do you have any thoughts on what Joe has spoken about during his segment?
Completely agree with Joe. Open source is the way. I'm a big fan.
All right. Well, we are in the Mutual Admiration Society for now. We'll see if things get hotter or more heated when you either hype or hate. Coming up, Sushma, you're on next.
Sure.
All right, so 60 seconds on the clock, and Sushma, your time starts now.
Thank you. And I'm going to go contrast with you, Joe. I'm going to hate. And, in this day and age, I think knowing your data is extremely undervalued. And there's often there's a lot of urge to chase really shiny objects. And in the long run, in any organization to be successful, it's really important to know the business drivers. And algorithms are a Google search away, 4 lines of code, but asking the right questions is hard. Knowing every aspect of the business you're part of really takes discipline. So that's my hate of the day, that people need to spend more time on data and understanding their own data.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that one too. I guess we're going to keep the Mutual Admiration Society going. And it's actually one of the things that, I always get, like I always have my eyes out for new professionals from the computer science backgrounds. And I love the way computer science educationally has gone in this country. I think there's a lot of content and knowledge and depth there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on the whole discipline, but there's a piece that, as an empirical physicist, right, or as an experimental physicist, I should say, there's a piece about empiricism and about like skepticism about your data and about just concern and like this sort of like nagging feeling that like I really need to look at this data and make sure it makes sense and something weird didn't happen here, that a lot of times doesn't end up shining through in the standard CS grad school curriculum. And I think it also manifests itself a little bit, as you say, Sushma, on an interest and a devotion to the algorithm more so than the problem. Sometimes a really great partner of mine once said it this way, is like, and I think it's very similar to what you're saying. Sometimes finding the question is much, much harder than finding the answer.
Well said. Well said.
Now I got to pass that one off to Luis Sarmento, old friend of mine. Listen, it's been great talking with you today, Sushma. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back sometime and we can talk again.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. And to you listeners out there, please remember, like and subscribe and give us that 5-star rating, again, if you believe we deserve it, and help support the channel, help support great guests like Sushma. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Generation AI,
Automating Better Business,
a show from LivePerson.
Never miss an episode by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share the episodes you love. Until next time.